Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. This is a rebranding exercise. There's a couple of reasons why I made this channel and tried to get my information onto the BiggerPockets podcast. First, I was able to make work optional starting as a single parent with 3 kids, $89,000 in bad debt that I didn't know about until the divorce, only making $17 an hour. With that starting position, I was able to reach bad debt free and financial freedom within 8 years, and I figured that was a story that a lot of people could relate to. Another reason was I wanted to share my binder strategy. If you can actually get a tenant to request a rent increase and request longer leases, I figured that was something that people are trying to reach financial freedom with buy and hold rental properties would really want to know. And the bonus to me is that when you use the binder strategy, the tenant comes away happy because they got to be involved in a conversation that they've never had the opportunity to before. But I made a mistake. Or I continued a mistake that a lot of content creators are making. When I see videos about travel hacking or credit card hacking, my brain basically shuts off, having to understand the different point systems from each card and each travel company's blackout days or how their system works. Way too much work for my lazy brain. I like a simple cash back rewards credit card. I spend money on things I was going to buy anyways, and every month I get somewhere between $60 and $90 back as a cash back reward. And since I pay my credit card off daily for a few reasons, I never carry a balance, which means when I get the cash back, it doesn't pay my balance down. It gets added to my checking account as cash that I can spend, save, or invest. Invest. You know we're going to invest it, right? Right. We invest it. I invest it. So when I talk about my strategy of buy and hold rental properties to reach financial freedom, I include house hacking. And I know that there are some people that when they're watching and they hear me say house hacking, their brains shut off, like mine did when I heard travel hacking. When I hear people say, I could never house hack because X, Y, Z reasons, I know that they are mentally shutting down and not being open to something that is beyond simple and could be life-changing. Have you ever had roommates or stayed at a friend's or family's house? Then you've already house hacked. There are many ways to reduce or eliminate your housing costs, and at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about several of them. Before I do that, I want to talk about how powerful this is. For some of us, it's as powerful as walking into your boss's office, asking for a 100% pay increase, and getting it. I was paying $1,500 a month for an apartment. Now I'm living in this fourplex, profiting $1,700 a month. I'm being paid $1,700 a month to live in this property. There are a lot of people who are paying $1,500 a month for their mortgage or $1,500 a month for where they're renting like I was. Without looking at what we do for work or how much we're paid, there is a $3,200 difference in our incomes. I was paying $1,500. I'm now making $1,700. That is a difference of $3,200 without having to get out of bed. It's actually a bit more than that because in order to get the $1,500 to pay the mortgage or pay the rent, we have to earn more than that since that's taxable income to have the $1,500 left to pay the bill. But to keep it conservative, we'll just go with $3,200. If you've ever worked in payroll or done any accounting, you know that there are 2,080 work hours in a year. 40 hours a week by 52 weeks. 1 or 2 of those weeks might be vacation time, but it's still the same number of hours that get paid out. So, 2,080 hours. And if we divide that by 12 months, we come up with 173 hours on average that we work in a month. If we take the $3,200 difference in pay between what I used to have and what I have now, and we divide it by 173 hours that we would work in an average month, We're making $18.50 an hour based on a 40-hour work week to live in the new place. Since I used to make $17 an hour, living in the fourplex basically gives me over a 100% pay increase, and I never had to walk in and talk to my boss to get it. Between the apartment and the fourplex, I lived in a duplex. I'm going to leave that out now, even though it's making $800 a month in cash flow. And I won't talk about all of the other units that I have because I was able to reinvest the cash flow. Just looking at the income from this one property, I over doubled my income from where I started. And yes, at my job, I'm making a lot more than I was making 10 years ago. But let's say you're making $30 an hour. Would you like a 50% pay increase? Or let's say you're making $60 an hour at a prevailing wage job, like the graduates from my CDL school that go off and drive a dump truck for the county. Do you think if you're making $60 an hour, you wouldn't like a 25% pay increase without having to talk to your boss or work any overtime? Boss, hey boss, can I have a raise? Sure. But not today. My crappy little $1,500 a month apartment was 1,080 square feet. Didn't have a garage, and I had to pay extra for parking. The fourplex I'm living in, each unit is over 1,200 square feet. Each unit has a garage, I have a shed, and 2 parking spaces I don't have to pay extra for because I own the place. This really is the cheat code to wealth. I've only done it twice, but if I didn't do it, I'm fairly certain I wouldn't own any rental properties, and I would still have to work a couple more decades instead of making work completely optional a few years ago. A couple more things to point out before I go over the different ways a person can reduce or eliminate their housing expense, which for most of us is our largest expense. The first thing is appreciation. This isn't something we can count on, and not something we should invest for, but when it does happen, it is a factual event. In 2020, in my area, we saw appreciation over 15%. Since I paid $590,000 for my fourplex, my net worth increased over the last year, without me having to do anything but live in this property, by over $88,000. Just from this one property. And on top of appreciation, each month part of the mortgage goes towards principal paydown. The tenants are helping me pay off this loan. And with things like depreciation and write-offs, I have never paid any income tax on rental profit, not just on this fourplex, but on all 16 units. There are a couple of reasons for these tax benefits. First, there is a housing shortage. We need housing, so the government wants to encourage people to invest in properties. The second is that most of the people who work in Congress own properties. What are the odds that the laws that they create would benefit them? Here are some of the ways that people reduce or eliminate their housing cost. The simplest is probably having roommates. Some people do this while they're renting, which means using this cheat code is possible before you even buy a property. Another option is to buy a small multifamily, a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. 4 units or less basically gets you the same lending options as a single-family house does, things like FHA or VA work, for example. To me, one of the best benefits of these residential loans is that you can get 30-year, fixed-rate, low-interest rate loans. Sometimes people say there are no small multifamily in my area, or I would never live in a small multifamily because I don't like the idea of sharing a wall with a tenant. There are different options, something like this duplex, where the living spaces are separated by the garages, so there are no living space walls that touch each other. And if there are no small multifamily in your area, there are options like a house with an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit. Some people call this a mother-in-law house. An example is this triplex that I have. This is either a house with an ADU duplex, or it's a duplex with an ADU house. I've never figured out or cared which one is which. You can live in the house and rent out the duplex. Or some people will buy a house and build out the basement and separate it into a living quarters, or buy a split-level house and divide the upper and lower portions. Basically, creating small multifamily in a market where there aren't a lot of them. We have been told since kindergarten that we need to work more than 40 hours for more than 40 years to retire on less than 40% of what we were making. In the comments below, let me know what sounds better for you, the 40 for 40 for 40 plan or 10 years to financial freedom. Because using this strategy, I believe almost anybody can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less. I'm asking other content creators to help me with this rebranding exercise. Let's stop calling it house hacking, since that turns off a lot of brains. Instead, let's call this the cheat code to wealth, and let's see how many other people we can get on board with building a life of freedom. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.